Death comes for us all, even for the men who once held the most powerful office in the world. Some faced their end with courage, others with regret, and a few with words so haunting they echo through history. This is how the presidents of the United States met their final moments, and what they left behind in their last breaths. It began with the first, George Washington, the man who could have been king but chose instead to serve and step away. On December 14, 1799, after a lifetime of war and nation-building, the father of his country lay dying at Mount Vernon. A severe throat infection stole his voice, but not his dignity. His last words? "'Tis well," simple, stoic, unshaken even in the face of eternity. His physician recorded that Washington himself checked his own pulse as life slipped away, a general to the very end. But perhaps no presidential death is more fateful, more poetic than that of John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Once bitter rivals, then reconciled friends, they died on the same day, July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration they helped create. Jefferson, ever the writer, left this world asking, "Is it the 4th?" as if he willed himself to hold on until the nation's birthday. Hours later, Adams, believing his old friend still lived, whispered with his final breath, "Thomas Jefferson survives." He was wrong, but in a way, they both do. Not all presidents died old and fulfilled. Some were taken too soon, their potential unspent, their last words etched in tragedy. Take William Henry Harrison, the president who served the shortest term in history, just 31 days. His fatal mistake? Refusing a coat on a freezing inauguration day. Pneumonia claimed him. His final words were meant for his doctor. "Sir, I wish you to understand the true principles of government. I wish them carried out. I ask nothing more." A leader, even as fever stole his senses. Then there was James Garfield, shot by a delusional office seeker in 1881. For 80 agonizing days, he suffered as doctors probed for the bullet with unwashed hands. Infection set in. Near the end, he murmured to his wife, "Oh, that pain," before whispering, "Swaim, can't you stop this?" A plea for mercy that never came. For some, the presidency never truly left them, even in death. Their final words carried the burden of a nation. Theodore Roosevelt, the Lion of America, faced his end as he lived, without fear. In 1919, riddled with illness from his Amazon expeditions, he told his family, "Please put out the light." Then, to his butler, "James, will you help me get up?" Moments later, a blood clot silenced the bull moose forever. Woodrow Wilson, broken by stroke and the failure of his League of Nations, whispered to his wife, "I'm a broken machine. The wheels won't turn anymore." And just like that, the man who dreamed of world peace was gone. These were the ends of giants, some peaceful, some painful, all profound. But the story is far from over, because in part 2, we'll witness the assassinations that shocked a nation and the last words spoken in blood. Some presidents left this world peacefully in their beds. Others were stolen from it by gunfire, by madness, by history's cruel hand. These are the stories of the presidents who didn't just die. They were murdered. April 14, 1865. 5 days after the Civil War ended, Abraham Lincoln sat in Ford's Theater, finally at peace. He didn't know a fanatical actor lurked in the shadows. The gunshot cracked like thunder. The last words he ever spoke, just moments before, laughing at the play, "She won't think anything about it," a joke, a mundane remark, and then darkness. For 9 hours, he clung to life, his massive frame struggling against the bullet in his brain. His breathing was ragged, his pulse fading. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, watching over him, later claimed Lincoln died without a struggle. But was that true? Some say in those final moments, his fingers twitched, as if reaching for a reunited nation he would never see. Not all assassinations were quick. Some were slow, torturous, a public spectacle of suffering. James Garfield lingered for 80 days after Charles Guiteau shot him. The wound wasn't fatal, but the doctor's filthy hands were. As infection rotted him from within, he muttered in delirium, "Does it hurt?" Not about himself, about his wife. His last coherent words? "Oh, Swaim, there is a pain here." A finger pressed to his heart, not where the bullet struck, where the betrayal festered. William McKinley's killer hid his gun under a handkerchief. "I done my duty," the anarchist cried after firing. McKinley, ever gentle, begged the mob not to hurt his attacker. For 8 days he fought, even asking for his favorite hymn, "Nearer, my God, to thee." His final whisper, "Goodbye, goodbye all." Then silence, and America's hope for a peaceful century died with him. And then there was Dallas, November the 22nd, 1963. John F. Kennedy never saw the rifle. His last words? To Nellie Connolly, laughing as the sun warmed his face, "No, you certainly can't," a light-hearted reply. A second later, his head exploded. No final wisdom, no profound last words. Just a smile, a spray of blood, and a nation's innocence shattered. They say Jackie crawled over the trunk to collect pieces of his skull, that Lyndon Johnson was sworn in with her still wearing those stained clothes, that in the chaos, someone heard a sobbing Secret Service agent whisper, "He's gone." But Kennedy, he never got to say goodbye. These men didn't just die, they were taken. And in their absence, a question lingers. What if? What if Lincoln saw Reconstruction? If McKinley avoided war? If Kennedy reached 64? History doesn't answer. It only whispers their last words and leaves us to wonder. Not all presidential deaths came from bullets or sudden illness. Some were long, slow wars of attrition, battles fought in sick rooms and shadows, where pain was the enemy and time the merciless general. April 12, 1945. Franklin Delano Roosevelt had led America through Depression and World War, his body failing even as his will held firm. The polio that stole his legs didn't kill him. It was the strain of the presidency itself. That morning, he woke with a terrible headache. His last words? To his cousin as he rubbed his temples, "I have a terrific pain in the back of my head." Then, collapse, a cerebral hemorrhage, no final speech, no grand farewell, just a man, exhausted, finally at rest. They found him slumped over a table, still working. The draft of his speech for United Nations Day lay unfinished. His hands were cold before anyone noticed. The nation had been so used to his strength, they forgot he was mortal. Woodrow Wilson survived a stroke in 1919, but it broke him. His final years were a twilight existence. His body a prison, his mind drifting between clarity and confusion. By 1924, he was a ghost in his own home. His last words? To his devoted wife, Edith, "I'm ready, simple, resigned." The man who dreamed of world peace left it with a whisper. They buried him in the shadow of the League of Nations failure. The treaty he championed, rejected. The world he tried to save, ungrateful. And yet, his ideas outlived him. The United Nations, decades later, would rise from his ashes. Some presidents fought death long after leaving office. Ronald Reagan, the eternal optimist, spent his final years fading into the fog of Alzheimer's. His last known words? Not to historians, not to cameras, to his wife Nancy, in a moment of clarity, "I love you." Then, silence. For years, until in 2004, his great heart finally stilled. America remembered him as the man who won the Cold War, but Nancy remembered him as the man who, at the end, didn't know what a president was. These were the silent battles. No gunshots, no grand last stands, just men, once giants, reduced to frail flesh. But in part 4, we'll face the strangest deaths, the ones history almost forgot, and the eerie last words that still haunt us. History remembers some presidential deaths clearly, but others fade into shadow. These are the endings that don't make textbooks, the mysteries whispered in medical journals, the final moments so strange they defy belief. July 9th, 1850, President Zachary Taylor, old, rough, and ready, dropped dead after eating a bowl of cherries and milk. The official cause? Cholera morbus, but rumors spread like wildfire. Had he been poisoned? The truth was simpler and stranger. In the sweltering Washington heat, Taylor gulped ice-cold milk after cherries, shocking his system. His last words? To his doctors, "I am not afraid to die. I have done my duty." Then, convulsions. Then, nothing. 141 years later, scientists tested his remains. No poison. Just bad luck and 19th century medicine. The man who won battles against Mexico fell to a snack. August 2nd, 1923. The Palace Hotel, room 8064. Warren Harding, handsome, popular, and drowning in scandals he didn't yet know about, suddenly clutched his chest. His wife Florence was reading him a flattering magazine article when he gasped, "That's good. Go on." Then, silence. The official cause? Heart attack? The whispers? Something darker? Florence refused an autopsy. She burned his papers. Was it a stroke? Poison? Or did the weight of Teapot Dome crush his heart? We'll never know. The only witness was a woman who took his secrets to her own grave. June 15th, 1840. 1949. James K. Polk, the workaholic who promised one term and delivered an empire, withered to 97 pounds. Cholera? They thought so, but modern historians see a darker truth. Polk worked himself to death. 18-hour days. No vacations? His diary reads like a suicide note. I have not slept 4 hours a night in 2 years. His last words? To his pastor. I love you, Sarah, for all eternity. Then, the man who added Texas and Oregon to the map vanished from it. Look at his portraits. The transformation is horrifying. The presidency aged him 20 years in 4. A living warning, power consumes. We told you Harrison died of pneumonia in part 1, but the full story? Even stranger. That infamous 2-hour inaugural speech in freezing rain probably didn't kill him. The real culprit? Washington's water supply. Harrison's doctors treated him with mercury-laced calomel and opium. They bled him. They blistered him. In other words, they murdered him. His actual last words? Sir, I wish you to understand, before delirium took him. 31 days. The shortest presidency, and one of its most gruesome ends. Today, researchers think enteric fever, typhoid, killed him. The cure? Wouldn't arrive for 100 years. These are the deaths that slip through the cracks. The ones without statues. But in part 5, we face the most chilling category of all. The presidents who saw their deaths coming and spoke their truth. Some men meet death by surprise. Others feel its approach like a change in the wind. These presidents didn't just die. They foresaw their endings, leaving behind words that still raise the hairs on our necks. February 21st, 1848, the old lion, 80 years old, a former president now serving in Congress, rose to denounce the Mexican War. Then came the stroke. As they carried him to the speaker's room, he whispered, "This is the last of earth. I am content." But his heart wasn't done. For 2 days, he clung to life, murmuring in Latin and Greek, until finally, to his weeping wife, "I love you as I did on the day we were married." Then, the scholar who'd outlived his presidency by 20 years was gone. They left the desk exactly as it was when he collapsed. The blotter, the quill, a warning carved in oak. Time's arrow spares no man. June 1924. 16-year-old Calvin Coolidge Jr. died from a blister gone septic. The president never recovered. 3 years later, as he prepared to leave office, he wrote in his memoir, "The power and glory of the presidency went with him." His last words as president to reporters, "I feel I am no longer fit." And in 1933, when death came for him, just 4 words to his wife, "Grace, my love, how's my boy?" The White House electrician would later swear he heard 2 voices answering. They found his son's belongings in his dresser 9 years later. The man who joked about being the most forgotten president remembered everything. June 8, 1845. The old warrior lay drowning in fluid, his lungs failing from years of bullets and duels. His last coherent words? To his family, "Oh, do not cry. Be good children, and we shall all meet in heaven." Then, typical Jackson, his pet parrot started shrieking curses so vile they had to remove it. But here's what chills historians. 10 years earlier, a fortune teller predicted he'd die at midnight. On his final day, he made them check the clock every hour. When the sun rose, he gasped. The prophecy failed and died. Minutes later, the time, 6 p.m., a lesson? Even the devil couldn't kill old Hickory on schedule. January 17, 1893. Hayes, the most precise of presidents, woke and told his doctor, "I know that today I die." How? He'd calculated the symptoms. His last act? Writing a letter about prison reform? His last words? To his son, "I know I'm going where Lucy is." His wife had been dead 12 years. At exactly 10:15 p.m., his heart stopped. Not a minute sooner or later than he predicted, the watch they took from his pillow still ticks in Fremont, Ohio. Still wrong by exactly 7 minutes. The time it took the doctor to declare him gone. These men didn't just die. They prophesied. They planned. They said goodbye. But in our final chapter, we'll witness the most shocking endings of all. The presidents who cheated death until death cheated them back. Some presidents stared down death and walked away, but fate always collects its debt. These are the stories of men who survived assassination attempts, illnesses, and brushes with oblivion, only to meet stranger, darker ends when their luck ran out. April 14, 1865. As John Wilkes Booth's bullet tore through Lincoln's skull, his youngest son, Tad, was watching Aladdin at another theater. That night, 12-year-old Tad screamed awake, "They've killed Papa! The man in the dream had no head." 3 years later, Tad himself would be dead at 18, of what doctors called pleurisy, but Mary Todd swore was a broken heart. The Lincoln bloodline ended that day. No descendants survive, just stories. White House staff reported seeing Tad's ghost for decades, forever searching for the father who never came home. October 14, 1912, a madman shot Teddy Roosevelt point blank. The bullet hit his steel eyeglass case and 50-page speech, then lodged in his ribs. Did he go to the hospital? Number? He roared, "It takes more than that to kill a bull moose," and gave an 84-minute speech while bleeding down his shirt. But that bullet never came out. For 6 years, it festered. By 1918, infections left him nearly blind. His last words? To his valet, "James, put out the light." Then the man who survived Cuba, the Amazon, and an assassin, let darkness take him. February 15, 1933, just weeks before his inauguration, FDR survived 5 shots from Giuseppe Zangara in Miami. The mayor next to him took the fatal bullet instead. 12 years later, April 12, 1945, Roosevelt sat for a portrait in Warm Springs. He suddenly said, "I have a terrific pain in my head." The artist barely had time to put down her brush before he was gone. That portrait still hangs there, half alive, half dead, like the man himself, who cheated death in 33 only to be claimed by the stress of saving the world. March 30th, 1981, John Hinckley Jr.'s bullet stopped 1 inch from Reagan's heart. His famous quip to Nancy, "Honey, I forgot to duck," made headlines, but few noticed what he told doctors. "I can't remember things like before." Was it coincidence? Or did that bullet spark what would steal his mind? We'll never know. His last words to Nancy before silence took him? Just 3 words. "My love." Then, for a decade, nothing. They all escaped once, but death always comes back, stronger, smarter, and in the end, undefeated.